When my wife, Emily, announced her yearning for independence over our shared existence, I didn't argue. I looked into her eyes, offered a subtle nod, and let her words sink deep into my core. For months, she'd been restless, speaking of autonomy and uncovering her authentic self. I had clung to the hope it was a passing phase, but that night, she packed a bag and walked out of our home. The pain in my chest was as if my heart had been ripped apart. Yet, I stayed quiet, watching the woman I cherished choose solitude over the life we'd built together. That initial night alone in our house was tormenting. Her absence echoed through every corner. The vacant spot beside me in bed, the quiet kitchen, her untouched teacup in the morning. Still, I forced myself to remain steadfast. She sought freedom, and who was I to stand in her way? The silence, however, made me question everything. Had I been too controlling, too predictable, too ordinary for her? A week dragged on, and I immersed myself in work to dull the ache. Friends encouraged me to move on, to accept her choice. Yet, deep inside, I felt Emily hadn't fully weighed her decision. She'd been pursuing an ideal, a belief that independence would soothe her unrest. I anticipated her call would come, but I resolved not to beg for her return. On the 7th day, my phone glowed with her name. I hesitated, conflicted. Part of me wanted to let it ring, to let her bear the consequences of her choice. But my heart still belonged to her, so I picked up. Her voice quivered, delicate, as she asked, "Can we sit down and talk?" We agreed to meet at a quaint cafe, a place steeped in memories from the early days of our romance. When she entered, I noticed weariness carved into her gaze. She appeared diminished, fragile, as if life had drained the spark she once exuded. She tried to smile, but it faltered. After a weighted pause, she admitted, "Freedom isn't what I thought it would be." Her fingers toyed nervously with the rim of her coffee mug. I believed leaving would make me feel vibrant, but I'm adrift, empty, like I walked away from the one person who truly cared for me. Her words should have melted my heart, but beneath my composed surface, resentment simmered. Where was this insight when she left with her bag? Where was this realization when she prioritized herself over our connection? I wanted to yell, to remind her of the sleepless nights I spent questioning my own worth. Instead, I maintained my calm and asked gently, "What did you expect to discover out there?" She averted her gaze, shame flickering in her eyes. "I thought I'd find happiness, maybe excitement," she replied. "Instead, I found loneliness. The friends I thought would support me disappeared. The freedom I pursued feels like a prison now. I miss our home. I miss you." Her confession sliced through me, but it couldn't undo the pain she'd caused. Love is powerful, but trust, once broken, mends slowly. I observed her, questioning whether I could ever let her back into my life without the shadow of her leaving haunting us. She reached for my hand across the table, but I pulled back slightly. "You wanted independence, Emily," I said steadily. "You found it. Now you know its cost." Tears brimmed in her eyes, and for the first time, I felt the power shift. I was no longer the one shattered, she was. She begged for another chance, promising she'd learned her lesson. But her assurances rang empty now. A week of solitude had taught me something too. I deserved someone who wouldn't abandon me for fleeting fantasies. That evening, I returned home and pondered her words. The part of me that still loved her wrestled with the part that had found strength in her absence. In that conflict, resolve triumphed. I realized I couldn't go back to someone who viewed our marriage as a constraint rather than a partnership. The next morning, I called her and spoke my truth. "I'll always care for you, Emily," I said, "but what you walked away from isn't here anymore. You chose independence, and now I'm choosing serenity. We can't go back." Her silence on the line confirmed she understood. She sobbed, pleaded once more, but I held firm. For the first time, I chose myself, just as she had a week earlier. But my choice wasn't about running away, it was about valuing my own worth. Our marriage didn't end with her departure, but with my decision to let her go. She thought independence would liberate her, but it only showed her what she'd forsaken. The truth stung her more than she ever expected. For me, it marked the beginning of my recovery,